Okay, so the WPATH files have been released by Schellenberg. I'm going to take a bit of a different approach to this. Instead of looking at the files themselves, I'm rather look at what sort of the lefty, trans activist, non-trans conglomerate are saying about the files. And this is again a very important point, that the information bubble these people live in is airtight. Really going to be hard to break this one. So this is the Serf Times, which is a standard lefty show. And we're going to start watching this video called Elon Musk Spreads Matt Walsh's Anti-Trans Lies and Propaganda. Lies and propaganda in big capital letters. So immediately Matt Walsh is a favorite demon of theirs. I don't agree with him. But again, he's continuously showing up, and every single thing they have always gets back to Matt Walsh and the evil Elon Musks for telling people or spreading these lies and propaganda. So let's take a look.
Is the truth about WPATH's origin would ever listen to a word they have to say. Okay, so Elon Musk once tweeted this out 16 hours ago. I thought it was going to be more about this. But anyways, Aaron Reed, at Aaron in the Morn, if you follow her work. Number one, on Monday, anti-trans groups released WPATH files in an attempt to create a quote major scandal. I analyzed the highly editorialized document and found 216 instances of factual errors, misrepresentations, and distortions of leaked material. Subscribe to follow my work.
So immediately you see that they're not looking at the files at all. They're not even opening them up. They're not reading them. They're immediately going to one of the most prolific trans propagandists or trans activists, Aaron Reed. And you notice he, she, it, they, them is actually not even talking about what's in the files, talking about what's wrote about the files.
The document has editorial commentary before it presents a single leak. That is a what of editorializing before you present evidence. How many of you have had writing assignments in your lives? Because I've had a lot, all right? I'm an English lit grad. I had to write a lot of words. Someone's like, yeah, your writing assignment is 37,000 words. I'm like, but to do that before presenting any evidence at all, the foreword is quite long. You could say it's a short novel of its own right. Here we go. It tries to paint a picture that is not supported by the document that is leaked, that you would not read and presented with them first. So of course, it's, with the expression muddying the waters, poisoning the well, the common technique. Before you read the evidence that I'm presenting, I'm going to basically lead the witness and present the entire case before you and get you really mad just from the get-go. 37,000 words worth, 37,000 words. Like, hey, by the way, trans people bad, really, really bad, mutilation. And then by the time you get to the actual document, it's like, okay, so here's the new evidence.
Okay, so again, Surf's guy saying that it's an anti-trans document, and the 35,000 words was a description of a very complex medical scandal. So you had to front load it with a lot of explanation. And this is an inherent weakness. The trans activist side is very simplistic. It's very black and white. It's just trans is something just like diabetes. It's diagnosed in a second when you're in the office. They give you your treatment, your gender affirming care, and you're done.
First shared by right-wing activist Michael Schellenberger, and then nearly every anti-trans organization, Inspect the ADS and Fair Medicine, FIM even added the fake red bar, fact check true. I assume as an homage to my anticipated article.
So anti-trans organizations, anti-trans is anybody who disagrees with any sort of trans narrative. This is not a negotiation with these lefties. This is, you better get on board or else we're coming after you.
Check. The actual inaccuracies, incorrect citations, and misrepresentations of both the literature and the leaks are pervasive. In many instances, the authors reference their leaks, which are not searchable without OCR, based on the assumption that you won't be able to search them. The editorial section serves as a prime example of the Gishgau. Attacked for numerous errors on thrown up once to overwhelm anyone attempting to critically respond, a strategy that is first used by creationist Dwayne Gish. I didn't know it was actually named after a creationist. That's actually pretty wild to learn. I learned something.
Yeah, the Surfs guy is really on a smart characterization. Already characterization, the part put it in the anti-trans category of evil propaganda.
Well, let's begin. First, the misrepresented citations. One citation claims WPATH sought a revision said, quote, shockwaves through the medical profession, resulting in a letter signed by 2,000 concerned individuals, many of whom are clinicians, except that said shockwaves in the medical profession. Oh my God, and provided catalysts for beyond the That's so bad. Except one look at the actual letter reveals that this is not the accurate gauge of the medical profession at all. Instead, it is filled with signatories with titles such as DJ, yoga instructor, graduate student, concerned grandmother, pastor, and more. I love that. Oh, all right.
Okay. Obviously, the people in the document are trying to remain anonymous, and that's a no-no. So any anonymous leaks is considered propaganda, and they will either A, try to get these people to reveal who they are so they can go after them individually, or B, they're just going to discredit everything they say because, again, anonymous stuff can't be sourced correctly.
Pretty so great. So great. You know, you have to look it up. It's like, well, many signatories have actually joined in to call and question whether or not this is actually, you know, some form of child abuse. Cool. Who signed it? Which doctors? They have titles, not doctor per se, but there are titles. You know, we have DJ. Yeah. Yeah. DJ's a yoga instructor, concerned grandmother. Yeah. Lonely uncle. Lonely uncle has signed off on it, and he is lonely. That is for sure. Another section states that those who undergo gender assignment study, quote, do not show positive outcomes, and has 4 citations. One is a 2004 Guardian article. One is an article from a conservative New Age Utopia site called The New Atlantis. With these sources, The New Atlantis. The other 2 do not back it up. Another claim states that 2% fatality rate for sigmoid gender affirming surgery. Review of the citation reveals a single case reported death from infection. The actual view of 386 such surgeries shows low rates of major complications. No deaths. So straight apply there. The editorialized document contains several factual errors. For instance, it states gender affirming care is a, quote, new form of conversion therapy, without indicating that evidence shows the vast majority of trans people are not straight post-transition. It also repeats one of the most inaccurate statements ever made about trans care. The vast majority of trans youth will, quote, desist if forced to go through their assigned sex at birth puberty. This is false. Numbers show that 80% desistance rates comes from an old study that is well known. They feature old diagnostic criteria that treat feminine gay boys the same way as trans people, for instance, and do not require identification as another sex. This is the biggest one that to this day, the transphobic crowd still try to use as a weapon. And that's because they don't understand that there are changes between each one of these releases and how we can actually classify individuals who happen to be trans, cis, gay, straight, all that kind of stuff.
So again, this is all just standard trans rights propaganda stuff. There's no way of classifying these people. It's all interpretations on their personality, or if they like pink or blue, or other perception type things. But they have this whole, I guess, ecosystem of information servers. They have bad reporting. They have studies that are incomplete. It's an entire ecosystem to maintain ideology and to keep people in this kind of trans activist loop.
Our understanding of these topics grows, so too does the DSM and their guidelines. And so, yes, there's a jump from the DSM-4 to the DSM-5. There's going to be new ways of classifying people. That doesn't show that in between the two, that there's been 80% of users or people who submitted information as suddenly desisting or not being trans. It means our way of classifying people who are cis trans has evolved. Very, very different thing, though. Modern criteria shows trans youth persist at a very high rate. 97.5% of trans youth who transition continue stable in their identity 5 years later. This is used to paint the various picture of trans care by the author, inaccurately claiming that trans youth are, quote, locked in. The locked-in hypothesis was designed to answer the observed low resistance and detransition rates amongst trans youth and has not been validated. The alternative proposal by the authors is to restrict social transition by haircuts, names, and pronouns. The article many times states that the, quote, ability to form long-term sexual relationships is drastically compromised and that hormone therapy impairs sexual function. This is untrue.
So I actually went back and I checked some of the sources that this individual puts in, and again, they go back. Like one source, an article said that basically trans people after the vaginoplasty actually maintain their sexual pleasure. But if you look at the study, it eliminated everybody who was on puberty blockers or didn't have any sexual experience. So it eliminated 80% of the people they're supposed to study, and there was like 20% who were sexually active before they had the vaginoplasty. And in this group, 50% had function to the point that they were happy with it. So it was a really biased study with a small amount of people in the study. And the study itself said it cannot be used to be generalized. Matter of fact, all of these studies that the trans activist cite cannot be used to generalize.
Instead, we find more research that 65% of post-op trans women found sex more pleasurable after surgery. A separate review of studies concluded. And by the way, even if this wasn't the case, why is it your fucking business, you weirdos? You know, for someone like Tim Pool and all these other right-wingers to be like, you can't experience. Why the fuck are you so obsessed with the sexual pleasure of teenagers, first off? And secondly, that's not true, though. And like, this is one of those things where this isn't based in reality. And even if it was, if someone has a higher quality of life overall, but they have diminished sexual sensation. But overall, in terms of like, hey, how was I before and how am I after? Am I happier than I was before? If it turns out the answer to that is yes, then what business is that of yours onto how strong of an orgasm they can have or not have? That's like, again, utterly bizarre behavior.
So this is a excellent trick to reverses the blame. It says, no, it's you who will have the problem for being curious if these people are getting served well. It's they reverse the things that they're accused of. So they're the ones who diverting attention away from the issues. It's just how dare you even think about the problems?
A separate study of studies concluded we find the most well-established changes in association HT are initial changes to libido and increased sexual satisfaction. Perhaps the worst aspect of the report is the way the editorialized claims are selectively altered or interpreted in a way that does not match the actual W path leak. Here are some examples. One actual source document for this claim is tucked away. What does the leak show? It's patient orgasm, something withheld by the editorial because it contradicts earlier claims of no orgasms. Another editorial claim exonerates clinicians for calling detransition a quote gender journey. What does the actual leak say? The patient called it the gender journey with no regret. A separate clinician only saw 4 detransitioners 25 years of practice. Another editorialized claim mentioned hepatitic adenomas, sorry for my pronunciation, without mentioning that they are benign and associated with birth control. The actual leak includes the phrase and or oral contraceptives. The editorial had no context around it. This is, by the way, the level of, I would say, scientific inquiry as well as justification that you're going to get with the, unscientific anti-LGBTQ+ crowd, because not what they believe is based on science. So they have to do shit like this. Incredibly dishonest reports that they consider to be bald shells, where the majority of it happens to just be their own thoughts, their own beliefs and feelings. And then after that, they're like, now we get into the facts. And none of them represent what they're talking about, or they're outright lies, or they're distortions, where they don't actually even understand the very things they're presenting and the data they're trying to show you.
So as you can see, they get from this report the exact opposite what we see the report as. And there's a lot of people stuck in this information bubble. And they are not looking at we haven't seen one file. We haven't looked at the report at all. We haven't seen one email. We haven't seen anything. It's all the ability to control information within gender, the trans activists is very critical. They have to control information, and they have to keep their supporters continuing to dismiss any sort of threats to their worldview.
These are just a few examples of hundreds of inaccuracies, misrepresentations, and more. The document, if the leaks were so damning, why must there be 37,000 words laden with factual errors and misrepresenting interpretations before we even see the leaks themselves? The leaks themselves are benign. They represent exactly what we want our medical entities doing, remaining engaged with care discussion in professional collaborations with one another, discussing edge cases and exchanging recommendations from clinical experience. Because yes, at the end of the day, the thing that the biggest don't recognize or ever acknowledge is that people want others to have best possible healthcare and outcomes, regardless if they are cis or trans. If people are cis, then everyone wants mechanisms to be in place so that they cannot falsely be documented as being trans and then receive gender-affirming care when they don't need it, because that will give them gender dysphoria. So the whole idea behind this is to have a very, very comprehensive way of understanding who is cis, who is trans, and then someone is trans, how to get them the best possible healthcare.
All of those things are wrong. We can't tell the difference between an imaginary category like cis and an imaginary category like trans, because they're all based on individual experience. And that's why, unfortunately, this is going to be maybe a generational fight. This may be a 20-year fight. There's no amount of leaking you can do that will ever change these people's minds. What you end up have to do is you end up have to convince everybody around them, and slowly get them smaller and smaller sets of people who are hardcore. And eventually the zeitgeist will change, and a society will change. And, they'll probably end up denying they ever said any of this stuff. That's why I like to document this stuff, because I want to make sure that people understand this is what people viewed this as in 2024. Okay. In 2036, we may see this as a horrendous experiment. And these people will be going on saying, I never had these views.
That's it. That's the whole secret, and that's the big leak. I'm also really excited about this thing because of the recent policy announcement from the APA, which was really positive for trans care. Yeah, that I would agree with there too. But it's gross. I mean, it's gross. Thank you so much for watching, everybody.
So again, that's pretty much it. And if you look at the comments, it's cries for censorship. It's Free Palestine continuously comes up. I don't know what this has to do with that. Again, trans rights, human rights. Even calls on the government to censor these people or to punish them for putting this out. And I bet you the next time they'll either fund a lawsuit or they'll try to discredit it in some other way. So they're really good at protecting this worldview that they have, because as they're starting to understand that the stakes here are between biggest scandal in history or being on the right side of history, and just like everybody will fight this to not be included among the insane.